For decades, pregnant people have been told not to eat during labor, not even a cracker, and sometimes even no water. That advice wasn't just about comfort or convenience, it came from a real medical concern. Today, that's no longer the case. Can you eat during labor? Do you even want to eat during labor? Great questions, Mama, and today we are tackling those questions here on the Birth Brief, where we explore evidence, experience, and everything in between. I am your host and doula, Emily. Back in the 1940s, an anesthesiologist named Dr. Curtis Mendelson documented rare but serious complications: chemical pneumonia during general anesthesia. So, hospitals responded with strict policies: no food and often no drink, to reduce the risk of aspiration, which was causing this pneumonia. But here's the thing: that policy was created in a time when general anesthesia was far more normal for birth. At the time, general anesthesia was routine not just for cesarean births, but even for many spontaneous vaginal deliveries, a legacy of a very different model of childbirth, which we'll explore in the next episode. Dr. Mendelson based his recommendation on 13 years of data, a pretty impressive number for a data set, but it was from a single hospital. And he studied 44,000 births and documented 66 cases of aspiration pneumonia, 0.15%. That's less than half of 1%. That is now known as Mendelson syndrome. These were serious cases. Your lungs are meant for breathing, not food, after all, and this syndrome can lead to permanent injury or death. Dr. Mendelson's recommendation to withhold food and drink made sense for safety in that specific context, but the study reflected only one hospital's approach, likely using the same anesthesiology techniques for those 13 years and training lineage. And it wasn't designed with scientific rigor or patient comfort in mind. Nowadays, general anesthesia is used in about 5% of births, usually in true emergencies or if another surgical procedure is completed at the same time. For example, a case I read wherein an intestinal blockage was also treated while the baby was being born via the cesarean. Definitely a two birds, one stone situation. Most people receive regional anesthesia, where just a part or region of the body is anesthetized, like an epidural or a spinal block. These do not require intubation, and thus the risk of aspiration is basically non-existent for regional anesthesia. That alone has a big impact on whether eating during labor is still considered risky. And the research is starting to reflect that shift. In fact, a growing body of evidence supports light eating in early labor, especially for low-risk births, though certain high-risk births are still safe for consuming food. Let's compare labor and running a marathon, or even a triathlon. Your body is working hard for hours and it needs fuel. When you don't eat, your body starts breaking down fat for energy. That produces ketones, which might slow down contractions and make labor longer and more exhausting. Might. Now, let's explore this a little deeper, because honestly, I debated whether to include it at all in this episode. We have such a limited understanding of ketosis during labor, and I'm not convinced it's something that needs to be managed or prevented. It might actually be a normal part of labor physiology. In the review, Interventions for Ketosis During Labor by Jocelyn Toohill and colleagues, they write, quote, "The effect of ketosis on the mother and baby during labor is not clear. Therefore, there is uncertainty as to whether ketosis is a normal physiological response or whether women with ketosis in labor require intervention, such as intravenous fluids or increased oral intake for maternal and infant well-being." End quote. And they go on to say that there's simply no solid data on whether to treat ketosis during labor. No universal evidence-based protocol, no clear guidance. It really is the art and training of the provider to decide. So, why bring it up at all? Well, if you start digging through the literature, ketosis comes up frequently enough that I think it's important to talk about because a lot of sources mention it without really clarifying that it might not be an issue. For instance, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, ACOG, says, quote, "Assessment of urinary output in the presence or absence of ketonuria," which, by the way, just means ketones in the urine, a sign your body is burning fat instead of carbs, "can be used to monitor hydration. If such monitoring indicates concern, intravenous fluids can be administered as needed." End quote. So, this is something your providers are trained to notice or at least can test and get a read for. Ketonuria means you're likely in ketosis, and ACOG doesn't say this condition must be treated. They just say fluids, especially sugar-containing ones like dextrose, can be given if needed. What's the problem with that? Let's go back to Toohill and colleagues. They point out that intravenous therapy can have side effects, including disruptions to glucose and insulin regulation, which could cause neonatal hypoglycemia, lowering of sodium levels, maternal headaches, nausea, fluid overload, slower labor progress, breastfeeding difficulties, and reduced freedom of movement. And, not to mention the discomfort of having an IV inserted. Some people have a real aversion and fear to needles. Now, on the neonatal hypoglycemia front, more recent randomized control trials after Toohill's review have found that using 5% dextrose solutions doesn't increase the risk of hypoglycemia in newborns. So that concern is probably outdated. But the other potential effects? They still matter. And no, none of these things are guaranteed to happen. There are controls in place to prevent several, but they can happen. All that said, I'm still not convinced ketosis during labor is something that needs fixing. Have I found compelling, robust research to back up that hunch or to completely change my mind? Not yet. If it's out there, I haven't seen it. And if you know of a scientific study, not a blog post, but a scientific study, preferably published within the last 10 years, please send it my way. As for now, here's where the doula lands. Ketosis can cause fatigue, but so can labor itself. Is that tiredness just part of the normal hormonal and physical process of an unmedicated labor, or is it a red flag? I don't know. And as far as I know, nobody else knows either. What we do know is that treating ketosis doesn't consistently lead to better outcomes. So it's fair to question whether intervention is always necessary. Eating, even something small, helps maintain blood sugar, energy, and endurance. Remaining hydrated helps with this. If I am with a mom wanting a transcendent or non-medicated birth, I'm going to be like, girl, eat. If your body wants food, listen to it. I listen to mom's body first. Some options for usually well-tolerated consumption are clear broths or soups, coconut water or electrolyte drinks, soft granola bars. Remember, anything hard or jagged may come back up later because a lot of women do actually vomit during labor. Fruit, popsicles, honey sticks, or fruit puree pouches, or even fruit jerky. Think light, energy rich, and easy to digest. Now, despite eating during pregnancy being safe, if you are still anxious and wish to follow the guidelines of the ASA, the American Society of Anesthesiologists, or ACOG, then you can drink and eat non-particulate food. So clear broth, clear soup, coconut water, I think would fall under that, electrolyte drinks, and ice chips jello. Of course, there are situations where eating during labor might still be discouraged. Like if you're scheduled for certain medications or surgeries, you may be advised to hold off. These kinds of issues are what your provider deals with, and, talk to that person or people. That is what they're there for. Many hospitals still follow outdated policies, even if the evidence has evolved. That's why it's important to talk to your provider before labor begins. Ask about their policy. Share the research if you need to. If you're planning to eat during labor, include that in your birth plan. At the birth brief, I believe that informed choices are powerful. If you're low risk and want to stay fueled during labor, that is a valid and supported choice. Eating during labor might not be right for everyone, but the idea that it's always dangerous, that's an outdated myth. And it's time we replaced fear-based policies with evidence-based support. Thanks for tuning in to the Birth Brief. If this episode helped shift your thinking or sparked new questions, I'd love to hear from you. Links to the research I referenced are provided in the bio or the show notes and on the website mtbirth.com. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, wherever social media is. There probably is an account registered. And also, you can check out mtbirth.com for even more resources. Until next time, stay informed, stay empowered, and keep tuning in for more birth briefs.